I'm raised really like a real man of an Arabic royal family. I am raised to know everything. British, French, Italian, Arabic, Dutch, whatever. My real big dream is to see Palestine free, open borders, people living in prosperity, Jews, Arabs, Christians, all one. I believe in natural dietetic cures. Leadership is forgiveness. When you forgive, you can accept. We have to teach manners before we teach history with all the mistakes of history. I want to hear every African say, I am African. I hope one day I will be the royalty that I was born to be. And I want to be the princess of humanity. No wars, only peace and prosperity and harmony.
I am your host, Gaurav Garg, and we welcome all our viewers to our show, Amazing Mentor. Today with us is Your Highness Dr. Mohiba Khalil. She is an eminent and respected figure of the high society in different G.C.C countries. In particular, very appreciated by the House of Nahyan, U.A.E, the House of Al-Sabah, Kuwait, the House of Al-Sabah, Saudi Arabia, and by the people of power and key influencers such as India, Pakistan, U.S.A, South Korea, Netherlands, Switzerland, Ghana, Kenya, among many other countries. As a member of United Nations Economic and Social Council. As an international public relations for business development consultant, Your Highness Dr. Mohiba Khalil gives us a guest speaker lecture about various topics in different institutions. It's a pleasure to welcome Dr. Mohiba Khalil to our show, Amazing Mentor. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you for the huge introduction. You must have read it somewhere. First of all, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I would love to thank you for your invitation, and I'm going to try to be as much as honest and as much as straightforward, but it's not about me. You know, the introduction was about me, but the whole subject will not be about me. I will share a little bit about my background and who I am, so the viewers can understand why I'm thinking this way. See, my grandfather was the Empire of Palestine, the Ottoman Empire of Palestine, Khalil Shawqi Ibrahim Pasha. And in principle, I'm a royalty, but we are occupied country, as you know. Okay, my grandfather was killed in Egypt, in Opera Hotel. In Egypt, he was poisoned and he was killed in 1939. A few years later was the occupation of Palestine. Actually, there is only occupied Palestine. Saying this, in principle, I do not speak about Palestine because the whole world is one. Identification is only a culture. Like you say, I'm Indian, the other one says I'm Chinese, the other one says I'm African. I speak 7 languages and I give lectures all over the world. My background is social medicine and psychology, but I worked in surgeries because I like it. That's part of my study. I was born in the Carmel in Haifa. I was raised by British and Irish nuns. Yes, I survived. And then I went to the University Rambam Hospital to study social medicine. The war broke at 1978-79 with Lebanon, and all I could see is soldiers and, you know, all the ugly things of war. I chose to immigrate to the States as a young lady, where my uncle was Assemblyman State of California. I lived with them for a few months until the day, and I will tell you now about my noble feelings, until the day that I said, Uncle, we would like to go with a whole group of bunch of girls from the university, and we would like to see Hollywood. Who wouldn't like to see where Madonna lives and all this, you know? I came from the gardens of Haifa, which is very famous gardens. Before were my gardens, and now they are well known as the Baha'i Garden, which they are not Baha'i Gardens, they are my gardens. I grew up there 24 years. I was born in that Arabic house in the gardens, and my school was just near my house, so I just could walk to school. Like 2 minutes, I was at my school. When I went to Hollywood with these girls, I was robbed. My bag was taken away from my Range Rover, and I came back. I was just putting petrol, and I came back and I had only $5 in my jeans. I was a beauty, 21 years old, and I'm thinking, my God, what do I do now? We're in downtown somewhere in Hollywood, and I don't know anybody else. And my uncle was in D.C., Washington, working. So I called my other uncle, I called him, I called everybody, and they said, oh, just please try to take a place. So I said to the girls to take the car and enjoy their trip to Hollywood and everything, and I will take care of myself. That'll be fine. So I went into a church, and I went inside and I saw the priest, and I said to the priest, I'm a Christian lady. At the time I was Christian, now I'm a Muslim for like 15 years. Because one day I wrote something like a piece of a Quran in my dream. I write always my poetry in my dream. Then I said, I come from Haifa, Carmel. I'm a Catholic girl. I'm a member of the YMCA. My uncle is this and that. And I need just a few hours to call collect to my family, etc. At that time, this church was huge, like a big castle. And the man, it was like about 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. And the man said, of course, my dear, you can use the phone. I said, I have $5, can I have an apple? Because I was hungry. And so he gave me 2 apples, and he said, well, you can stay as long as you wish. We have also a hotel near a house where you can sleep if necessary. I thought, fine, okay. Imagine I'm coming from a royal family with world famous gardens where 50 buses comes a day to watch the gardens. Then I'm working with an assemblyman with Range Rovers and pilots and God knows what. And I studied to be a pilot in the States, etc. And then I'm sitting in a house with a church where people started to come in there like homeless. I've never seen a homeless person in my life, with 3 kids, drug addicted. One of them got an attack in front of me, and I had to think about it. Okay, I'm a medical staff, so I should be able to help him. So I put a spoon in his mouth to keep his tongue, that he would not swallow. And then I became the legend of that guy. So I saw the real life, the real America, where everybody thinks, well, we will immigrate there, we will live there, it's my big dream, All I knew from America is the U.S.A. Nimitz ships where came to Haifa port when we were in war. And my mother used to bring the phone into the middle of this group of soldiers and tell them to call their mothers. Saying this, I was in that church hotel. I got a kind of cultural shock. I was like, my God, is this the America I'm dreaming of? Is this where I want to raise my kids? Where people are homeless? I started baking pizzas in the kitchen and making salads because we had like 300-400 people barging into that house and into the church. I did not sleep all night because this one was carrying his guitar, the other one was carrying his baby on his arm, and the other baby was raped. And she's pregnant, 12 years old, with 2 kids, and the 3rd one is coming up, and carry on and on and on and on. What happened to me? I went back home. I was picked up by my uncle. A few hours later, my mother said, oh, well, your uncle will pick you up, no problem, My uncle came there. He did the donation for the house because I asked him to do. And I went home and I could not speak to anybody. Nobody could speak to me. And I can speak. When I speak. But mostly I'm very quiet because being quiet, being silent makes you think. So I went home and took my suitcases, put them on my bed, put all my clothes in them, called my parents and said, Papa, I'm coming back home. My mother freaked out. You are working with Ronald Reagan and assembly and this and this and that, and you are, mothers, university and this and that, and you can never reach that, and why are you so stupid? It just did not end. My nanny said, your room is the same, and I would love to have you around. Because when I'm home, it's music, it's art, it's fun, it's flowers, it's living. I love it. And my father said, I raised you. So I know that every decision you make, I respect. And I have to respect. If I do not respect your decision, I cannot be your father. He was very sensible and very humble, a son of a grand empire. So I went back home, and the first thing my father said, could you please explain why you came back? I said, Papa, there is 2 societies in America. the people and the nobility, and not the nobility, but the upper class, okay, where I belong to. And I don't want to belong to upper class when a child is being born on the street and where there's no social developments, when people are kicked out of their house because they cannot pay their mortgage. I heard stories in these 2 days that made my life a hell, thinking about in Haifa, where I came from, nobody is poor. No one. One Coca-Cola costs like $15 in a restaurant. It's like Monaco, it's like Paris or whatever, or these rich places. But in Haifa, also, when you have a house, the house is not yours. The house is a house of the community. I am born in a majlis. Majlis is the place to sit. So the place where you accept people. This one wanted to have a land. This one wanted to marry. This one wanted to have a license where my father should sign, or a piece of land, or whatever. But also my parents' house was like the house of the community. So I am born with a kind of norm and value on humanitarian basic. And I just could not see it. I just could not see that I will live in a country, and it's not to criticize America, because it's not only America, it's everywhere. The awareness has to start now, today. There is no community and no unity at the UN that can make it happen. We have to make it. Every individual has to make it. Why does somebody has few zeros of numbers on his bank account and the other one cannot even get bread for his day? Why?
You are a recognized poet at the House of Egyptian Prince of Poetry, H.H.Dr. Shawqi. Where do you get the inspiration from for writing the poetries?
First of all, I would like to share is that poetry is not just words that you say. It's like a volcano. It goes in your feelings, etc. You start putting words in your mind together. It's like the tsunami. I made a beautiful poet which was translated into 6-7 languages and was made a film by Ricardo Russo and Jean Lucas Lopez. They worked on the famous Oscar 7 times winner, The Legend of 1900 film. And they also worked on the film of the Titanic. They made all my films in 7 languages. All my poetry is translated and filmed, and it's all to be seen on YouTube. The thing is something has to hit you. You know, when you start putting a portrait together, when you are just taken by a happening or something, like a child in Cairo which would read my dress and say, flowers madam, and then the whole thing, being a mother of wonderful children who has the prosperity and a good life, then you realize how much this child needs you and what you have to do to change things. And then I started writing poetry with one word, and that was royal I am. But who's royal? I mean, who's royal? We're all royal. We're all spirits of God. We are all angels. And I always use the one word, I use it in many meanings. So if I have, for instance, I give you, for instance, Malikatun Ana, royal I am. Malika is royalty, is a queen, but Malak is an angel. So it's all from the same word. And then we're all angels of God. We're all angels of humanity. That's how I see it. So I plead and I beg to humanity to go back together and give us the prosperity what God gave us and not them.
So what is your favorite poem and any of the poem you would like to recite on the show?
One of my favorite poems is a poem that I gave to my oldest son, the surgeon, Lawrence, who used to play the piano, and he's still playing the piano, extremely beautiful. And while he was playing, I was writing in my mind. So I told him to dance with me to the rhythm of the music. So this is my favorite, and it was made also a film. Noble Desire is one of my favorites. It's just about love and affection of man. I was walking on the street. It's so amazing. It's really funny story. I was walking on the street and somebody said to me, "Hi," and I said, "Hi," in a very, very special way. And I went home and I wrote Noble Desire. And I thought, I don't know this man, I don't love this man, but the love and the affection that he gave me by saying hi in a special way, it made me write a love poetry. But most of my poetry has the message of humanity and the new dimension of civilization, what I call to get back to prosperity of life and change the world to a better place. No wars, only peace and prosperity and harmony.
So tell us one of your poem.
I will read for you something for humanity. It's called I Plead. I plead, I beg. I call in a bazaar, asking for humankind's mercy. And you are my child. My love grows day after day in the Eastern Square. A present in which it has taken too long to bring hope. This is part of the Arabic anger. And one committee and an international committee and body after body we consider. Treaty after treaty and we plead, and resolution after resolution. I plead. We have given up faith, slavery, Arabic dignity, and the respect for capitalism. Diplomatic relations in Eastern Square. This is part of the Arabic anger. A voice of the past calling and calling out of camps and calls refugees, fortunate and abandoned. And where are you? On sentences. They play with stones, throwing them. And where has remained the respect of motherhood? My people do not know victories or trophies. There is no solution for them because there is no united competition. This is it.
Who is your mentor?
My partner is my mentor. I have two mentors. One young man whom I supported 100%. And I love his art, his dignity. He's a calligraphy designer, which I helped from being poor till being very, very rich. And my partner, who is raised by a king. My real mentor was my father. Yeah, he raised me. He always said, I know what I raised. So he was always proud of me.
So what's that one thing you love being a philanthropist?
Being independent. I never had an ID card which was mine, because it was not necessary. Everybody knew who I was, so I never had to say I am the like people do. I'll give you an example. Yes, very good example. My daughters-in-law, they are Europeans, okay? I know so much of European art and music and everything that whenever we are listening to, for instance, with Christmas, New Year, I make always competitions and games and stuff like that. And you know this hats that they put a name on your face and everybody's guessing. Mostly I guess everything and they guess nothing. Whenever we hear a piece of music, I say Bolero, Ravel. I say Tchaikovsky, number 5, Rachmaninoff, number 23, Opus 3, and they go like, how do you know all this? And I say, okay, if I tell you in Arabic, ha 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 ha, ha ha ha, which one is this? They don't know. They know nothing of Arabic or Eastern or something. It's not that they don't want to know. They're not raised like this. So I am raised to know everything. British, French, Italian, Arabic, Dutch, whatever. And we're like open-minded. My mother used to go to Paris to get me a dress. So I would always say, Mama, why would you have to go to Paris to get a dress? Because there is the design. Because you have to look unique. So we are raised by, see, the conflict where it starts. I am at a British nuns school. Yes, Christian. I'm living in a Jewish, well, colonized state of Israel, which is Palestine. For me, it's Palestine. It's occupied Palestine. Then I come home and I have a nanny who's a Muslim. So she says Bismillah, I say Bismillah. She goes to pray and she says Tahtuha. Until today, I don't know what it means. It means maybe a nice child. And she says, Tahtuha, come with me to pray. Okay, then I go with her and I pray. At school, I prepare my communion. At my work, I speak Hebrew. At my study, I speak Hebrew. At school, we learn Latin. We come home, there is Quran. We can hear it. Adhan. Near my house, there is a mosque. So it's all in one person. I speak 7 languages. It's not a magic. It's not a surprise that I do speak 7 languages. It comes from itself. I have sometimes very funny reactions from the Saud. I had, for instance, I will let you hear it how it works. I had to open an international conference in Davos a few years ago. I think Davos or Geneva, I don't remember exactly, but okay, it was like, Mesdames et messieurs, bienvenue chez nous à Davos pour l'International Dame du Jour. Sayyidati and Sadati, ahlan wa sahlan, and carried on 7 languages. And then somebody comes from the south and he says, lady. I say, yes. And he says, we're not so intelligent, please have mercy with us. It was so funny, you know. Sometimes they call me, princess, when are you getting normal? You know, stuff like that. It's funny how people react, you know. Sometimes you're walking in the street and you understand people saying stuff and then you're smiling and then they understand that you got it, you know. It's, yeah. I don't have limitations of thinking, or I'm never afraid of people. I'm raised really like a real man of an Arabic royal family. That's all.
So where did you started your journey from?
Oh, it's a long story, Kira. They wrote a book about my life, a whole book, 240 pages. And I tell you, this is very interesting. I went once with a friend, professor at the university here in Amsterdam, to an international thinking tank called the Nexus Institute. At home, I was raised, be careful, do not say. Be careful, do not speak. So I was writing. So all my writings were in my drawer. And because, of course, they had to protect me. So, and not only me, my sisters and all. So we were not allowed to talk at home. I give you an example. I was once with my mother walking in a place and there was the news and I smiled. I laughed, just as a child, a few years old. And my mother said, you cannot do that. And I said, what did I do wrong? Laughing. We are in war area. And I think, oh God, ooh. And then my mother hears their news and the radio is on. A woman sitting behind us in a restaurant, in a kind of a cafe bistro. And she hears the name of her son that died. And I still remember the radio station was called Galet Sahel, means the voice of the army, okay, of Israel. So she lost her child, and this woman was screaming and crying and everything. And then I knew why I was not supposed to laugh. You know what I mean? So the day that I went to this international institute, thinking tank, right away I became a member, I became a friend, I paid all my, everything they wanted, because I discovered one thing. They respect your thoughts. You are allowed to say, you are allowed to be. And that is one thing I learned. That was before I had children. And that's one thing I learned, is never say to a child, don't say that, you know, or shut up or whatever. No, you are there to listen. You are there to guide. Like my children could have been the best musicians. Well, dumb. Yeah, when they were 10 years old, they were already on stages with orchestras. But one of them becomes a lawyer, the other one becomes a judge, the other one becomes a doctor, surgeon. I can't force them. You can guideline them. That's all you can do. This was for me a kind of eye-opening from, okay, I am allowed to be, I'm allowed to say. Here people do listen. Here people do discuss. And that same Nexus Institute, which I devoted all my books to, was run by a lot of victims of the Second World War, Jewish, Christians, Arabs, international. So I was thinking, well, here people do listen. Here you are allowed to be as academic person that have an opinion and would be respected. So that was a little bit an eye-opening for me. And of course, winning the poetries and giving lessons and lectures all over the world, being invited. That is what happened, yeah.
From many roles that you play, writer, poet, artist, speaker, educator, philanthropist, which one is your favorite and why?
I think every part, whether I'm a doctor, whether I'm a poet, or whether I'm a mother or a speaker, it's all completed in one person. You cannot separate this from that. I mean, I'm always humbled when I stand in front of a government, whole government listening to me. Like in South Korea, what they did actually, they sent a professor to my house here in the Netherlands and in Geneva. And this professor, Jason Lee, he was at my place for a long time in my pied-à-terre home. And we were sitting for hours and hours discussing. And the day that he had to leave, he stood there and he saw my children and my partner and everything. And he said, "This is the most intelligent woman I've ever met in my life." And he is the advisor of the royalty and the government of South Korea. So I think, wow, if he's saying this about me, there must be something wrong with me or right with me. Anyway, I'm a thinker. I've always been a thinker. Anything small, everything starts with a thought. Everything. I'm very rude. I'm not so nice. I'm not so kind. Sometimes I have to say the truth and people have to accept the truth, whether they like it or not. I'll give you an example. Whenever we have, for instance, a whole weekend where practices are open, everybody is allowed to walk in. So people misuse this opportunity when they come in. And then I say, you to room 1, you to room 2, you go back home, you this, you that. And then the room is empty in no time. Why? Because people think that we're stupid. We're not. We know exactly, with one examination, we know what's going on. So we studied a few years for that. I'm very kind, generally speaking. I'm very soft. I'm not so tough for my surroundings or whatever. But what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. That's it. Yeah, when they took in South Korea, they took all my ideas and started implementing that under the umbrella of the United Nations. And I was invited for like 6, 7, God knows how many conferences, also in New York. And at the end, it ended by an official visit to the Korean government. That was great. That was really great. That was a rewarding for my work. And I did the same with Egypt, did the same with many other countries. Now I'm busy with Brazil. We're going to launch the Amazon coin in no time. And I'm doing this also for Oman, my beloved country I adore, I love. We're going to launch there with Indian company. Before it was part of Reliance Industries. These are my friends. Prashant Tiwari, who owns Opinion Express, is going to launch the Q-Real with us. That's going to be with Oman Pay. So this is what we try to use with digital banking or digital coins. We try to use it for poverty. Against poverty. So for the Amazon, we're looking for how many people will use it, how many people can download it, how many people can use our telephones, ID card. By the way, I made for Shinai, I made a whole social plan, and the book that was written and given to our adorable Prince Mohammed bin Salman from Saudi Arabia, the social justice, I wrote that book and he used it. It was given to him with the interviewer. I don't know if you know him, Turki Al-Dakhil, very famous interviewer. He did interview him, and before that, he got the book. So I heard a lot of my ideas going on. I was very proud, yes. I have another mentor in the United Arab Emirates. I have a very good friend who is Minister Professor Jamal Sanad Al-Suwaidi. He's also a writer, and he is the head of the Institute for Strategic Research. It's actually the office of Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, and I'm their like spoiled rotten lady, I must say. We coordinate together. We put a lot of thoughts on table, and very often they ask, "What do you think about this? What do you think about that? How can we approach this problem or that problem?" Same meant for Oman. Same meant for Family Al Maktoum. I'm in the board of Family Al Maktoum. So yeah.
So what about your hobbies and interests?
I love painting. I always paint portraits. Painted many people, especially children. Nowadays, I paint a lot of cultural things, like Omani children, Saudi Arabian children with their cultural outfits. So it has something really special, because when you put colors on colors on colors, it speaks to you. And I cannot paint tree or flower. I don't know how to do this. So for me, when the eyes speaks, when the face speaks, it speaks. When somebody is angry, you get an angry person on the portrait. When somebody is happy, you get somebody happy on the portrait. Painting gives me a lot of peace and a lot of harmony. And I never known that I could paint. I went to an artist and I said, "Could you please paint my kids for me?" And then he said, "You could do it yourself." And I said, "I can do it myself?" He says, "Yes, you are creative. I think if you're a poet, and you must have some creativity in you." I thought, what do I need? So I tried. And at night, at 2:00 at night, I took this painting, and there was a lady painter, and she was up. And she said, "Come over." I said, "I think I painted my kids, and come over, I want to see it." So it was like, "Whoa, you can do it." So I said, "Okay, I can." Yes, she taught me few techniques, etc., because technical things are very important.
As a child, what was your dream to be when you grow up?
A pilot. I used to see the F-16 coming from the U.S.A. limits in the port of Haifa, or to see any other airplanes, and I used to dance in the gardens and say, "One day I'll fly in them." And I did it, and I'm glad I did. When I was living in California, my uncle had a lot of airplanes, so we used to fly. And my 21st birthday party was on Oakland Mountains. I flew the flight from Chico to Oakland Mountains, and there we celebrated my birthday in a breakfast restaurant, and I got my diamond rings and stuff like that. That was really fun. Until now, I like to fly, but I don't do it so often. When the children were small, I used to take a private jet and go everywhere. Yeah, that was a dream. But my real big dream is to see Palestine free, open borders, people living in prosperity, Jews, Arabs, Christians, all one. This is the real dream. And I hope really one day we will get that prosperity. And my gardens will be back and not being called Baha'i Gardens, but Khalil Shawqi Ibrahim Basha. That is my grandfather.
What about your educational background, schooling and higher education?
I think that when you go to schools or universities and you get degrees and stuff like that, it is secondary, because how many people do not have the biggest diplomas, but they don't know what to do with their lives. They're only like, I give you an example, is that when someone is becoming a dentist or a surgeon, he's only a surgeon, he's only a dentist, he's only a physician. So no, we are much more than that. We are thinkers. You have seen it with the pandemic of the COVID. Nobody knew what to do. We had all these diplomas and all these doctors and all these lawyers and everything. Nobody knew what to do. It's very, very important that science will be developed. The same as the pioneers that has found the medication against malaria and cholera in the tropics. And these are people who sacrificed and worked and saw the patients and everything. I believe that or to cure people It's not in the tablets that you write out, because mostly the side effects of the tablets are worse than the sickness itself. I believe in natural dietetic cures, especially when it comes to nerve system or body diseases. Like I give you an example. For instance, a patient with schizophrenia or any other diseases, whenever it ends in psychiatry, they kill him with medications. A long time I worked with a group of doctors and psychiatrists, and I used to scream to them, please stop giving my patients all these medications. Why does somebody become disordered or sick or whatever? Because the society does not give him the space. That's to begin with. You're always created by your environment and society. If I tell you the whole day, you're ugly, you're ugly, you're ugly, you're going to go and say, I am ugly because she said I'm ugly. Even if you're the most beautiful person. You know what I mean? So a lot of people are put in circumstances, whether it's fear, whether it's war, whether it's divorce of parents, whatever it is, or drugs abuse, or whatever, any other addictions. And the worst of all is that they end being at the people who needs to help them the most. And what do? They only write tablets. Why? Because he needs to be calm. Especially here in Europe, we have something like called orders. Okay, everything is ordered. An elderly, a child who is a little bit too busy, he is ADHD. Done. Here's a title. I can take one of my DSM books here, and I can find you 10 million titles for psychiatry and psychology problems. A woman who is complaining and a bit sick and a bit elderly, she goes to elderly home. Done. Someone who is a bit addicted will not be taken to his addiction to be helped. No, he will be put in psychiatry. So he will meet only worse cases than he is himself. So in place of taking these people, relaxing them, speaking to them, giving them the right diet, giving them the right approach, etc., showing them how worthy they are, they kill them with medications, and that is wrong. That is absolutely wrong. It's not always right. Let's say this.
So how was your experience as a oral surgeon and psychological expert?
My experience is that I read once a book that is called, I love psychosynthesis, because psychosynthesis takes the patient from his environment and brings him back himself. And that is a research that is done by Roberto Assagioli. I do not practice as a psychologist, not at all. I worked in surgeries for many, many years because I worked with a few professors in Haifa when I was studying. I loved the work, so I carried on in that kind of work. It was more research I'm one of the founders of the implants for jaw surgeries and stuff like that. Our research started with finding out what the pharaohs has done, and then we carried on and on and on until we find the platinum, and there we did a lot of conferences worldwide. But as psychologist, I believe that the environment has the responsibility. Absolutely. That's one thing for sure. But how do you explain to a child that your both mothers are your mother? Homosexuality. Well, go ahead. Tell to a child you have two fathers in one house. One is mother, one is a father. How can a child deal with that? How can a child deal with child abuse, war areas, hunger? We're all looking for prosperity. Where is it? And it is there. Why does people commit suicide everywhere? Because they don't find a way out. And that is something which is sad. And psychology is not always the answer. Psychology is nothing else and nothing more than a social place for a person that has no social life, no effect. It's like your aunt or your uncle or your nanny or someone who cares and loves you and tell you what to do. That's it. That's the way it is. Because they know you the most. They will analyze what you're feeling. They know you, they know your environment, they can help you. And that's the way it is. The only danger, and there it goes, there goes the scientific side of it, is that when somebody has a pathological sickness, the line is so small and so thin between psychiatry and psychology. And that's why I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
So as a part of royal family, what did you miss the most as a child when compared to common man?
interacting with others very easily. It was very difficult. It was always the laws and rules at the house. I give you an example. I was a real beauty when I was 21 years old. And one day I come home and I find a person wants to speak to my parents. I was a student and they saw me somewhere in a party. And my father says, this man wants to speak to you. And I said, okay. So I sit in the living room there and he says, we want you to be Miss Haifa. I said, Miss what? Yes, Miss Haifa. And because you're a beauty. And I thought, okay. So I went with the competition. He spoke to my father agreed, but my father said, you cannot go on as a royalty with a bikini on the stage. Your grandfather will not accept that. A normal child will do it. It's normal. We go also on the beach with bikini or whatever, or a bathing suit. I had to convince my father that I don't mind and I will not go on the whole competition. I became the third one and I left. I left the competition because I can't carry on. We were very illiterate in the house. We had a lot of laws, a lot of rules. We're not allowed to sing. We're not allowed to be in public in a certain clothing. We're not just allowed to say anything we think about. There is a lot of restrictions, but we were under occupation. So this was more difficult than a normal family. My grandfather used to set me near him and say, repeat your full name. Like a child, 6, 7 years old. Okay, I'm Mohiba Khalil. And he says, no, you're not. Khalil Shawqi Ibrahim Pasha, he was the Empire of Palestine, and you are his grandchild. And Mohiba is a title of the military. I got whole speeches as a child. God, goodness, And it was like a puzzle for me to figure out who we are, what we do. Recently, a book published with research about my grandfather, who was the Empire of Palestine. I never understood, why do we have majlis? Why are people always coming over? I like people, it's no problem, but why do I go to my girlfriend, who's also living in a castle, and they have no guests the whole day? We do. So I never understood a lot of stories about my grandfather, what he did and everything. Officially, we are not recognized because the Ottoman Empire does not exist anymore. But I do feel at home when I'm with royalties because we have the same attitude. And that's something you do not learn in a normal house. It's very exclusive. It's being illiterate, but it's not bad. And it's also a big responsibility. I hope one day I will be the royalty that I was born to be.
So what does leadership means to you?
Leadership is forgiveness. When you forgive, you can accept. When you forgive, you can become a friend. When you forgive, you can have the highest vision. You can have prosperity. You can have leadership. Leadership is not saying to somebody, here's what I dictate and what you should do. No, it's giving this space to a person to think and just think in general, because they will see what you're doing. They will always recognize you, whether you are bad, whether you're good, they will recognize you. You always get recognition. Somehow, somewhere, you get recognition. Gandhi was a very simple man. He just walked around with a stick. Imagine the effect that he has done to India and the world. Martin Luther King was just a lawyer. Mandela was the same. Well, these are the real leaders.
So tell us about your roles and responsibility in ECA, ISEA Foundation, and what all causes do this foundation works on?
The foundation stands for making leaders out of it now, because I've done my job there and now I'm in other foundations. I'm in the Arabic African League. I'm in the Brazilian work for the Amazon. ECA gave me the platform to implement my ideas about better economy. And they are amazing people. They stand against poverty. They do programs for Africa. They do cooperate with Queen Sheba and other royalties of African background. And from what I experienced, was amazing experiences. I have met another culture. It is just implementing the economic affairs of South Korea. So it was for me very important to implement my work. because you can have ideas and you can have writings and you can have everything. I am not involved in the financial part of it. So I don't become richer or poorer. No, I have my salary from my practices and there I live. I'm collateral, I'm very rich. I never involve, I don't win money from my work. No, I never do.
So how would you describe the society you and your future generation would love to live in?
I lived in Europe for many, many years. Europe was just awakening from the Second World War. We had this parapluie of the fear and to build. And well, I saw a lot of Occidentalism, racism. I met a lot of people that say, well, you're black, you're white. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm Mediterranean. What are you talking about? I've never heard of that. I would love to see Europe living another few hundred years for the sake of the European Union, which we worked very, very hard with the Nexus Institute to implement it. That was a very difficult process to put so many countries together, remove all these borders, put one flag, one thought. I wish every leader would take his responsibility to do his job well. So no for wars, no for mind limitations, and more prosperity and more taking care of the big message. We should never forget the immigration of the Jewish people to the Middle East. I hope and I pray to God that also Palestinians will be free and Jewish people will be accepted in the Middle East and worldwide as honorable and noble citizens of everywhere, and not religious would be a blood religious, because religious is something holy, is something prosperous. After all, whether you are a Jew or a Buddhism or Christian or Muslim or Baha'i or whatever, for what it is, you are between your carpet or your pillow or your mosque. You are together one with God. So you are seeking the highest vision. So why not start with your own measurements? A person who is in front of you. Mutual respect, basic of everything. Say sorry, say thank you. Simple. We have to teach manners before we teach history with all the mistakes of history.
So your journey has been driving in very different fields of activities such as medicine, banking, oil and gas business, technology, digital money and payment, philanthropy, diplomacy, etc. How do you keep yourself updated in so many different fields, and which one is your all-time favorite and why?
My relation to oil and gas, my grandfather from my mother's side was the head of the oil and gas companies from Iraq to Palestine. So that's one. We grew up like that, knowing that grandfather is abroad and grandfather is doing this and grandfather is doing that. His brother did the same job. When I came into Emirates, to live in Emirates, it was a very big reason why I lived there, because my daughter was sick and I treated her there in a private hospital, so I had to stay there. I was asked by Family Al-Taiba, who is a minister of oil, to work as PR for them internationally. They told me once, if we ask you to angels to get on table, you'll get them. So that is true. I don't know how I do it, but I did it. In banking, I'm not a banker. Okay, let's make this clear. I'm not a banker. I have my advisors, I have an international law firm, and I have my bankers. Whatever file comes to me, then it is or bin, or okay, this is valid and we can make something out of it. And that is mostly I do it. And if I do it, then it's for charity. It's not for me to live from. I can live in a normal life. I don't need all these funds. Real estate developments is because my partner, Sheikh Abdullah bin Mubarak Al-Hamadani from Sultanate Oman, he is a landlord and he developed real estate developments. I made beautiful work for him, which I'm very proud of. My father was an architect and technical constructor, so I have it a little bit. Whenever I see an old castle, I see it already renovated in my mind. So this is the artistic side of my father. Medicine is over because I gave the practices to my son. So I'm happy he is going on with that. I'm a person that hardly sleeps. There were people that told me that I use my day 24/7. And that is nearly true. I sleep like 3 o'clock. I work at night. I'm a real night butterfly. because night is very quiet and peaceful. Nobody disturbs you. I put some classical music and some coffee, and then I can work. I read a lot. Books are well, here you saw my bookshelves, and books are my best friend. And I am never ashamed to ask an advice. So if I don't know something, I say, well, Jamal, what do you think of this or that? Professor Jamal Sanad Al-Suwaidi, or my partner, Abdullah bin Mubarak Al-Hamadani from Central Oman. I say, what do you think of this? Please guide me, tell me what to do. And then he says, put it in the bin, or oh, this is great, or that we can use, or something like that. Giving lectures, I'm a speaker. I'm a member of many international thinking tanks where I go to conferences. That's the only place where I can socialize. And that's my only social life. My real social life, I don't have. To be honest, I'm not a person that goes for a cup of coffee or whatever. I don't have that. I don't know what that is. Shopping nowadays, you can do it by internet. Whenever I see a nice bag or nice shoes or whatever. And I design my own clothes like my mother used to do. I have a tailor in Abu Dhabi. I fly to Abu Dhabi, and mostly my royalty clothes, what you see in the pictures sometimes, I find it very difficult to wear it, but it's complicated with this, with this agal, etc. I have many of them. I try to use it, but I use it only in official occasions or whether I'm on an official trip. For the rest, I'm in a speakers academy, and I'm in the academy platform, speakers platforms all over the world. United Nations membership is under Economic Social Affairs, so I think everybody knows me there. My secretary is working there already 15 years, 20 years he's working with me, so I can reach a lot. We arrange conferences, committees and stuff like that. Yeah, it's hardworking, but I enjoy.
So as you have shown me, you have won many awards. So what was your first award and what does awards mean to you?
My first award was as a poet in the house of Ahmed Shawqi in Cairo. It was by accident that I was found as a poet. I sent 2-3 pages to translate in an institute here in Europe. And the man said, who wrote this? I said, me. And he says, do you have more of this? I said, I have whole books full. And then he said, can I see it? I said, sure. So it was in Arab. I made a beautiful Arabic dinner, and I thought, well, would you like to join us for dinner? And my children are there, and my partner is here, etc. And then he said, you are above all poets. And I said, what? He said, yes, and I will prove it to you. So one of the kids, we were planning to go to Venice, and one of the kids got sick. And I told him that my whole vacation went into the soup, we could not leave. And then he said, what about you joining us for a competition for poets in Cairo? And I've never been to Cairo, so I thought, okay, why not? I love flying, so it's no problem. We'll take the kids, so we'll go there. And it was a competition of like about 600, 300 people in one huge house, like a villa castle on the Nile. My children, of course, had the time of their life. They ran after the camel, and they gave always their pocket money to poor kids on the streets and everything. And it was quite an awakening for them, how good they had it. And then, well, I gave few poems, and at the end I thought, what the hell I'm doing here, because I heard all these famous names, like these books I read when I was a child, and I meet them face to face, like Al-Abnudi, Sayyidina Zainab, etc. And I thought, what the hell I'm doing here, and every time again I read a poem, I was crying, because it was my first time in an Arabic country reading my poetry to people who understands, because my kids just don't understand, they're Europeans. So, and that was the reason I wanted to translate my poetry in the first place, to let them hear it. So they said the second place, third place, fourth place, God knows what. And I thought, let's get out of here. And they said the first place goes to Her Highness Mohiba KHALIL SHAWQI IBRAHIM. And I was like, my God, what did I do wrong? And then they said, no, you did everything right. What they said is that my language is very illiterate. It's Andalusi Arabic, and it's poetic. It's like music. And I stay in the description of my poetry. So that I was awarded, and when you're awarded in Egypt, you're awarded worldwide. It's like they make parties, like 20 teams of media waiting for you for an interview. I could never enter the streets or the hotel. And I even remember I used to drink because I was Christian at the time. I took my martini and I went to a cafe. I took a martini and I took the martini, one sip, and I looked at the screen. I saw myself like 4 meters by 2 and I ran away. I ran away with the cafe. My second award was at the office of Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. I've taken it from the hands of Dr. Jamal al-Suwaidi, who is always accepting all his VIP royalties or presidents or whatever. And then he said, this is yours. And of course I cried because it was a trophy with all the Arabic sheikhs of Abu Dhabi, Dubai. And it was with a flag. It was the Liberation Day. I gave him, I love making Arabic art. I made for him the ship of the freedom with an Arabic calligraphy in it, which is beautiful in gold. It's the freedom ship, like the ships of Abu Dhabi, which they used to take for finding pearls in the sea, which used to be the tradition of Abu Dhabi. And when he put the flag with, I think, silver or gold was on the flag, I cried because it was my first time that I see an Arabic flag put on my clothes as a present. And my third award was in the UN. I can carry on. ECOSOC, Korea, Egypt, India. And now I think my biggest crown will be the crown of Oman. Curial. So this was it. I got awarded by the Voice of Africa Award in a party, and they asked me, they said, could you please say one sentence for Africa because you've done so much for Africa? And I said, I want to hear every African say, I am African. And all of a sudden I was taken into the stage and they gave me the Voice of Africa. So that was also very nice.
So you have been appreciated by some of the well-known royal house of U.A.E, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and by people of power and key influencers. What's your thought about the same, and share your feeling and any particular incidents associated with the same?
I'm proud of them. They made from sand castles. By the way, the castles in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, they are built by my own uncles. The Emirates Palace and the Presidential Palace is built by C.C.C, and these are my uncles from my mother's side. Said Khoury was CNPC, the petrol company, and that's the cousin, my own family from my mother's side. I'm very proud. They make me proud because there are, of course, many points that I would appoint to make it better. For instance, the immigrations, for instance, how they treat immigrants. There are some issues, but you have that everywhere. Look at Dubai. They have like 190 identity together, living in peace, and they are happy and they're in harmony. And I wish I could be there all the time, but it's due to my international working. I prefer to stay in Europe because I have to travel anyway, whether I'm in New York or Geneva or London or Paris or Vienna or Amsterdam. I have to travel here. I'll tell you about my experience in Dubai first time. I had a friend who was dying and he was more or less my patient. He heard that I'm a psychologist, so he said, could you please treat me? I'm a cancer patient, etc. So while I'm working at night, he was talking to me sometimes and he would say, the medicine was too heavy for me today, or I miss my daughter, or when I die, could you do this and that for me? And I was just listening and guiding him the way he should pray. And I would put for him some music. And then sometimes he'd say, I'm too tired, I need to sleep. And say, okay, go to sleep and I'll be there if you wake up. Whatever. And I was a bit sick and I wanted to meet him to greet him, just in case I wanted to know who was that person. I went to Dubai not knowing that even Arabic country exists. Imagine. I was in Egypt. I didn't like it, to be honest. And I'm talking about 25 years ago. I didn't like it because of the children begging in the streets and stuff what I saw, that I thought, my God, where is the glory of Egypt? I mean, the pharaohs, 9,000 years of civilization. Where is this gone, Because I know from my family, they used to travel with a ship to Alexandria, from Alexandria to go by car. My grandfather had a traction, French old car, used to go to the opera house to listen to music there, come back to Alexandria, go on the ship and come back to Haifa. There was fashion shows were first in Cairo to be seen. If you could see the films of Omar Sharif before, how women were dressed. There was nobility, there was luxury. I'm very capitalist. I don't like people being poor. I don't mind being poor, but I don't like people to be poor because we have everything. I came into Dubai. All of a sudden, I see people dressed like my father, walking around, Arabs. I took my camera and I started photographing them, just total strangers. I remember still, I told Dr. Jamal Sanat Suwaidi, I told him, first time I met him, I said, Jamal, you must be careful. He says, why? I said, because you're taking all these immigrants in your country, and then you will have Arabs that you will have to photograph when you see them. You're not so many people. Then he said, yes, you're right. You have photographed them indeed. I was surprised and I was anxious to speak to these people, to go to their homes, see how they live. Do they live different? And I remember one thing happened to me. I was crying at the airport of happiness, seeing Arabic country. I nearly kissed the ground, a free Arabic country, civilized, beautiful, etc. Then one lady came out of the cosmetic place and said to me, lady, can I help you? Are you in troubles? I said, no, I'm just happy. And I walked around. I will never forget my experience there. I came there into the country not knowing anything about it. Yes, nothing at all. And one day I saw Fazza Hamdan bin Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. I saw him on television. And I started screaming, this is me, this is me, this is me. And why? I gathered everybody around me that was in the costume. I said, this is me. I saw the camels. I saw the Sahara. I saw the poetry. I saw the hospitality. I saw the humble way of living with the luxury side of it. That was me. And I was forbidden of that. In the West, they don't want to know anything about it. I've never seen my flag. I've never knew my identity. The only identity I had was the Majlis. And I'll tell you something what happened. I was driving around. I had an Indian limousine and he loved me all these years. He was always my chauffeur because I like. And every time again, I will go to a royal family. One day we were driving in Al Butain. It's an area in Abu Dhabi. It's a beautiful area full of villas. Looks like Haifa a little. And there I see the Majlis, the same building, the same color. It's standing on it, Al Majlis Al Butain. And I start screaming in the car, Sadiq, stop here. Sadiq, stop here. Go back, Sadiq. And he goes like, what happened, princess? What happened, madam? And I said, go back to that building. Stop there. And he stopped there. I went out of the car, went to the building, and I stood there like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, like I was made of wood or metal. Like I just couldn't think. Only thing I got in my mind was the Majlis of my grandfather. It was the same building, the same color of the stones, the same writing on the buildings. And then he said, can we go now? I said, yes, we can go now. He always called me the sleeping princess because I always had a pillow in the car. I work at night. Sometimes I used to just take a nap while he was driving. And he used to say, well, can I be a sleeping chauffeur? I said, no, you have to drive. So
what inspired you to learn so many languages?
I learned Dutch, Switzer's in like 3 weeks. Nobody knew I could understand everything. So I figured out everybody speaking about me while I'm present, sometimes in a nice way, sometimes not in a nice way. So I knew who is my friend and who's my enemy right away. I had to because I live here, and my mother used to speak to me French when I was small because her grandmother was French and she was raised by French nuns. So for her it was normal to speak French. And whenever I speak to my father, he used to say, "Go to your mother, I don't understand." So I do really still remember that. I was at a British school, so you learn English perfectly, and you have to get all these prospects of the British, have Shakespeare and all this literature, etc. You learn it. I still remember having a huge fight in the family when I had to learn Hebrew, because I was like upstanding, no, they are occupiers, they came to us as refugees, they have to learn our language and we stay here the upper. And my sister said, you cannot live in this country without, you have to finish your degree in Bagrut, they call it. It was quite tough because you learn in English and Arabic and Latin and everything else. And then all of a sudden you have to learn Hebrew and go to make national exams in Hebrew. So how can you explain Arabic in Hebrew? It's a bit tough. So I had to learn it, and I can read the Torah, I can read the Quran, I can read the Bible, and everything is for me okay. If I would tell you in Latin, Christos anastes estene sanatu, you will not understand me. But if I would tell you that I said God is alive, Christ has been alive, stuff like that, you know what I mean? I understand the Latin as much as I understand French or English or Dutch or Switzerland or Arabic, Hebrew, or whatever. It shapes you. It shapes you. It makes you more vulnerable to other people and to the country. You understand the tradition. Look, language is not words. Is not speaking. Language is an attitude. When you meet with an Indian man somewhere abroad, don't you feel at home? Same thing with language. Do you know what I mean? If I meet somebody from Israel, I say, hey, is Sabra? Then I'm afraid right away. When I see Dutch, well, I'll give you an example. I was sitting in the Emirates Palace. I was there with a few royalties. We were having dinner. Across the table was a kind of a tent for barbecue and stuff like that. And they were all the time coming and going with food. And I heard Dutch. And I said, hello, one word. That was the ambassador of Holland sitting there. We became friends. We exchanged his cards. So it was only one word. I said, oh, how nice. I said it spontaneously, not in the intention to meet him or something. So these kind of things can happen, yes, when you know languages. It makes life easier, of course. In Korea, I did not understand never what they said. The only thing they always said, no, I understand English. And after that, I understood that they understood everything. So it's also a way of communicating.
So as per your opinion, what's the future of cryptocurrency?
It's a fiction. It will disappear. It will disappear. We will end giving each other some numbers. You give me numbers, I give you numbers. I think that's the real thing, because that's the way it is. That is what it is. When I give you this, for instance, I sell you this and you tell me 15, then I can give you 15 on your bank account digitally. That's all. Cryptocurrency is fiction. Nobody believes in it. If you ask the biggest banker, he would be a liar if he would tell you, yes, I believe in it. Nobody believes in it. But it happens. It's like a wave. It happens. So it waved. Even the value of gold will disappear. That I can tell you for sure. I hope humanity will have more value than gold.
Tell us about your audio biography written in 2008, The Scream of a Child, and what's the story behind the same?
I was at the birthday party of one of my friends, and of course, when I had small children, they socialize at school, etc. So I was invited to. There was a publisher sitting between the people, and she said to me, "Mohiba, could you please tell me your story?" And I said, "What story?" And she goes like, you remember the fortune teller story that she said you will become famous, etc. And I said, with what she said, with a book. And I thought, a book? Yeah, maybe my poetry, I thought. But it was a real book. And it was very funny. Hillary Clinton and Michelle Obama, had at the same period their book out. So I used to go to the shops and put my book above their book. And people will see it, start laughing at this. She said, Luciana, your friend said to me that you were a war child. I said, yes, I was a war child. I was really, 1967, I was walking behind the tanks looking for my parents at night. As my mother said, we will go to auntie and to the nanny's house. So I said, I will come with you. But we have such a huge house. She was in another living room waiting for me, and I thought she was left. I was like 6, 7 years old, so I ran the whole stairs. We have 240 stairs up to the hill of my parents' house, and it's huge stairs. So I went there in Abbas Street, and I saw there the tanks and the soldiers and the dead people, and God knows what I saw. And I was screaming and lost my shoes, and one of the soldiers said, go home, your mother is not here. So I went back home. And that I will never forget. Sometimes I have nightmares of that. My mother was at home, and she was going to go with my uncle by car in the other side of the house. So the lady, the publisher, I didn't know she was a publisher. She said, could you tell me how you got into parliaments and United Nations and being a professor and stuff like that? I never picked up my professor title, never. I was given a few times, but I never picked it up because it's not important titles. I said, yeah, I had a kind of a journey, and it was not an easy journey, and I explained her. And she said, what was the trigger? What was the trigger? And I said, yeah, I know you want to know why and how I changed, because some people, when they experience war, they keep their lives devastation, and some people do heal and they become more powerful and they don't mind coming up for what they need. I told her about my death experience. I was in coma for like 3 days after the birth of my oldest child. I was there. I was really there. I saw my father, I saw my mother, I saw everybody. I lost my grandfather, everybody. I woke up, I heard everybody around me in the room. I heard my child scream, and that's the only thing that brought me back to life. His love to me and my love to him, of course, because I really wanted to raise him and be with him. I love my children are for me holy. Nobody can touch them. It's for me like a treasure in life. And I don't see it. I always said to my children, I'm gifted because you're my child. I'm thankful to God that you are my child, that I'm allowed to be your mother, And if I make a mistake, I always say, nobody taught me to become your mother, because I do it intuitively. I do it intentionally. I don't do it intuitive. I don't do it like nobody taught me to become a mother, So if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, I can say sorry. For instance, if a child is doing something dangerous and he doesn't want to listen, then you have to tap him and say, okay, now it's the limit. The discipline is very, very important for children. So I told her about my death experience, etc. And I said, I'm not afraid of death because death is part of life. And I was there and God gave me a second chance. So I have to make my voice as a poet, as a mirror for society. And she said, what happened to your poetry? I said, well, it's translated into 6, 7 languages and it's made films and it's all on YouTube, etc. So she said, can I have your life story? And I thought, oh my God, I just said too much. And I was a bit scared because I said, well, you know what? You want to do media, you want to sell, you want this, not for me. I said, only if you promise me that it will become a kind of hope for children to take hope, to take a lesson that there is more than the grief of war or pain. So if I succeeded, why wouldn't they succeed? So that was the whole idea. It is more or less made in the eyes of a child, how a child sees things, because it's absolute. And I want children who comes from Ukraine or Afghanistan or Iraq or Syria to have the hope that they are somebody. They are not just anybody. So they are not supposed to grieve because of their circumstances. I find it ashamed for humanity. I mean it really. I'm sometimes ashamed even of myself. Whenever I eat or I buy something for myself, I always think of it. There is a child there living in a tent. Imagine. Can you go leave your house, live in a tent? I cannot imagine. Some people go on vacation camping, but there it's for one day, for a few hours, and not in the snow. I had a person calling me, telling me that his child was frozen to death, died. 9 months old child died in the snow in Lebanon. Where are we going to? So that's the reason I agreed to write the book. It was more poetry, pictures, facts, and of course science, which I cannot let go.
So what advice would you like to give to young generation?
Keep always hope, always believe in yourself, go for prosperity, don't give up, never give up. Always find yourself, find the child in yourself. Because if you can take care of the child in yourself, you can take care of other children.
What would you like to say to royal families around the world?
Be noble, take your nobility as a gift, give as much as you can get.
What are your current role and responsibilities?
I have with my partner, Sheikh Abdullah bin Mubarak Al-Hamadani, I must really develop Oman because I think they have done a great job in Oman, the royal family there, and he is from Sohar. And Sohar is strategically very interesting worldwide. I do have a foundation which is situated in my house. I try to make programs for, especially now, I'm working on Oman and on Brazil for the children of the Amazon and the Brazil. I'm also very much involved with Palestinian families. We have a few foundations in Palestine where we try to help women to get back to on their legs, to learn some jobs and stuff like that. And I'm trying to get investments for Oman to develop their real estate, etc. Because Oman was hit like a year ago in a hurricane, which was very, very bad. Yesterday, I was told that in Bangladesh, where they called a hospital to my name for children, pediatric hospital, it's for premature children. There is in Chad also orphan homes being called to my name. I don't know, but I'm trying to take my role serious and to carry on developing everywhere where I can develop. Yes.
So now we will start our rapid round.
Okay.
Your favorite color?
Light blue.
Your favorite destination?
You don't have to ask twice. Abu Dhabi, Oman.
Your dream house?
A castle in Arabic country or in Haifa. For me, a house can be as big as possible. I don't mind. Okay.
Success in one line?
Prosperity. Believe.
What one change you would like to see in the world?
No more wars. No wars. No killing.
So at last, one line that defines you.
Diana was the princess of the heart, and I want to be the princess of humanity.
Thank you very much for your precious time and accepting the invitation to come on our show and open your heart. Thank you very much for your time.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Thank you very much because you're giving me the voice where a lot of people can hear and think about it, please.